Did I hit you?
No, did I hit you?
I don't.
I hit something.
We're not using swords. That was the problem, is we don't have any swords. Hi everybody, welcome to GameGorgon. My name is Krug.
I'm Indigo.
Today we're here to talk to you about weapons, the thing that you use in Pathfinder to kill other people.
Or, you know, you could use it to not kill people.
Sure, I mean, yeah, anything's a crowbar. Crowbar can also be a weapon.
Big picture for how weapons are separated. There is two main categories, which is melee and ranged weapons. And then from there are subcategories within them that depend on the complexity as well as the rarity of those items. They go simple, martial, uncommon, and exotic.
First high-level category is melee weapons. They're fairly self-explanatory. They're melee ranged weapons. They generally have a range of 5 feet, although some of them can have longer ranges. It's possible. And they use their strength modifier for damage and attack bonuses unless the weapon has the finesse trait, in which case you can use dexterity if you want, and you're weak, a wimp.
Ranged is a weapon that uses projectiles that harm and hit your enemy.
Pew pew.
They use dexterity for hitting, but they do not add anything for damage. Unless the weapon specifically has a trait that allows you to use your strength modifier to the damage. For the most part, it does not add anything.
Like some heavy ranged weapons would have that trait, right?
Yeah, like a composite longbow.
Yeah.
The other thing about ranged weapons that melee weapons don't have is the fact that you have to deal with reloading. Some weapons take up to 2 actions on your turn to reload. So you will literally fire and reload on your turn, or fire, move, do something else, and then on your next turn, reload. Like, it's possible that you can make a round without doing any sort of attack due to reloading.
Which is sort of detrimental, but then you think about the strength of like just distance in general.
Sure.
Range is really strong. I think the more and more you think about it.
Sure, no, range is very strong, but like the 2 caveats to it is reloading and the fact that you're not adding, for the most part, not adding anything to your damage.
Yeah, so lower than usual damage and lower than usual like actions per second, I don't think is necessarily weak, but might be boring.
Well, why don't you let us know down in the comments, is ranged attacks too weak to be fun, or is it a nice balance? Let us know.
Yeah, do it. Just like the armor video, we're gonna go over the weapons chart. This little table shows us statistics about weapons in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And so we're just gonna quickly gloss over all of the things in the chart so that you have an idea of what you're reading if you're confused by it now. The first column's labeled weapon. This is the name of the weapon. It should have been named name because that's what it is.
Or type.
Or type.
Yeah.
Calling it weapon is weird. That's a weird choice.
Next is price. Well, that's how much it costs to just flat out buy.
Yep.
That's pretty
We told you that a second time. You're welcome. Next up is damage. This is going to show you the dice that you roll for damage when you hit with the weapon successfully. It's also going to show you the kind of damage that the weapon deals. There are 3 types of mundane damage that you can deal, which are piercing, slashing, and bludgeoning.
It also determines with certain monsters that have resistance to piercing or slashing, or can't be hurt from bludgeoning. That's where this comes in. Next is bulk. It's how much it weighs. Like, that's it.
We're gonna go a lot deeper into stuff like bulk when we do stat blocks.
Yeah, exactly. Next after that is hands, which is determining how many hands it takes to wield that weapon, whether it's a ranged weapon or it's a melee weapon.
Really? Because I thought it was the number of hands you could chop off before the weapon broke.
No.
No?
No. 1 or 2? That's miserable weapons.
It is. It's like Breath of the Wild weapons. They just break instantly. Next is group. It's a silly little column that shows you basically which weapons fit together thematically, I guess you could say. So for example, a greatsword and a longsword are 2 wildly different things, but they are both swords. Yeah. And so they will both be in the sword group.
It also determines how the critical success, or like the critical specialization, I should say, works for that specific weapon. Yeah. So if you train down that route, the sword section will tell you what additional abilities it can do.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in this video. There are 2 additional columns. These columns are only available for ranged weapons because why would you have a range for a melee weapon? That doesn't make any sense. First is the range. The range is basically the effective distance at which that weapon can be fired or projected if it's a thrown weapon. Up until that range, that weapon should be functioning normally. And then for every multiple of that range after the initial one, you take a -2 penalty. So if a weapon has a range of 50 and then you try to shoot something at 100 feet, that's -2, 150 feet, that's -4, so on and so forth.
And then the other additional column is reload, which we've already kind of talked about, which is how long it takes you to reload your weapon to fire another projectile.
Yeah, really important to look here if you're a ranger or using a ranged weapon, or else you're cheating.
Next with weapons is whether or not you actually successfully hit your opponent.
You don't.
First you roll your d20, and then you take that number and add your modifier to hitting. So
Right.
for a ranged weapon, it's usually dexterity, and for melee weapons, it's usually strength.
Correct.
You also then add your proficiency with that weapon, giving you a single number.
We forgot to talk about the multiple attack penalty, which is a new mechanic in 2nd edition that makes attacking multiple times in a single round less effective. If you make more than one attack on your turn, subtract 5 from your attack roll for the second attack and subtract 10 for each subsequent attack after the second.
And if that number is equal to or greater than their armor class, you successfully hit them. Now, if you roll a natural 20,
You don't.
or you're 10 above their AC, it's actually considered to be a critical hit. With a critical hit, you double your strike damage. So that's everything. The dice you roll, your bonuses to your damage, all of that goes towards that critical hit. You can actually get a critical specialization based off of that weapon.
Yes.
That is where this happens.
Yes. Critical specializations are just interesting ways for martial classes to bring out the flavor of their weapon, I guess you could say. They're extra effects that you can add on a critical strike that allow you to manipulate the person you're hitting in some other way aside from just doing double damage to them. Something to spice up the class a little bit, I think. There are a couple of examples, but there are tons of critical specializations to go through, so we're not going to cover all of them. One good example is the club. The club allows you to knock back an enemy 5 or 10 feet, your choice, on a critical strike.
How does moving him 5 feet or moving 10 feet away from you affect how my enemies have and my allies
like
have?
the relationship between all the characters. It really feels like every time you critically hit, you get to cast a cantrip. That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. If you want to see a video of us doing just the weapon traits, let us know down in the comments. Until next time, that's totally not how we do our outros.
Nope.
While you're down there in the comments, why don't you also hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and then hit the bell icon so the subscribe button works properly. And then head over to Twitter and talk to us there. You can talk to me on Twitter at IndigoQT.
You can talk to me on Twitter at KrugQT, or you can talk to both of us at _QueueTimes on Twitter or at QueueTimes on Instagram.
We've been GameGorgon. We'll talk to you later.